Hello everyone, welcome to Real Academy. I, Madhushri Tokekar, welcome you all to today's important session. This session is important from the perspective of our upcoming examination. As we all know, examination is approaching, so every single class from now onwards becomes extremely important. Today, we are not just studying another lesson, we are preparing ourselves to score confidently in the examination. If you remain focused, disciplined, and revise sincerely, there is absolutely no reason why you cannot achieve excellent marks. Before we begin, let us understand the ICSE English Literature paper pattern. The literature paper is of 80 marks and carries equal importance as the language paper. The questions are designed to test not only your memory but also your understanding, interpretation, appreciation, and analytical skills. The board expects students to write well structured answers supported with textual reference wherever required. Avoid writing one line answers. Every answer should have an introduction, explanation, and proper conclusion. So, today, the most difficult topic, or we in this session are going to discuss the most challenging topic of the entire literature paper is Julius Caesar as well as haunted houses. From the students' perspective, what it is being understood that students find a lot of challenges in the poem The Haunted Houses. The poem itself is a little complicated and it needs constant vigilance regarding each and every stanzas, each and every inner meanings, and the context it is referring to. Similarly, when we speak about Julius Caesar, the novel, we have, as of now, for the exam, Act 3 and Act 4. I'll give you a quick review of both the acts along with a short revision of the poem The Haunted House. I hope that this short guidance will help you out in scoring excellence in your upcoming exam. Now, let's begin with this. The first thing that we need to understand is ICSE English Paper 2, that is the literature paper. So, in this, we should understand that it is a comprehensive overview of examination paper pattern, section wise marks, allocations, and context question strategy. This is the exam structure and the paper pattern. Now, if we see, we have four sections, section A, B, C, and mark split. Similarly, we have the other section where we have written the type of questions, then marks, then strategic focus. Now, let's try to understand each section precisely. Section A, that is compulsory MCQs. It will have drama, poetry, and the prose. Marks, 16 marks. And what are the strategic focus that we need to emphasize in this? Focus on precise quotes, speakers, location, and literary terms. Moving to section B is the drama section, that is Julius Caesar, where in this exam you will have Act 3 and Act 4. 16 marks set. Now, how to focus, what to focus is choose context sets. Explain motive, subtext, and character flaws. Section C is of poetry, which is also of 16 marks set, where we need to strategize, analyze poetic devices, central message, and philosophical tone. The fourth section is a marks plate, where context sub-questions, which means that from section A, B, C, and then comes where sub-questions like 1, 3 plus 2, 3 plus 3, 3 plus 4, 3 plus 5, 4, which also contains 16 marks. In-depth 4 mark answers require character, contrast, or critical evaluations. I hope the exam structure and paper pattern is clear to everyone. Moving on to the next slide, we have Julius Caesar Act 3. The turning point, assassination, rhetoric, and the fall of the Roman Republic. Now, Act 3 is very, very important from the exam perspective. Why am I telling this? Because Act 3 refers to the assassination of Julius Caesar. Now, Julius Caesar is the protagonist of the play, the chief character, or the name which is all about the drama, the Julius Caesar. Now, assassination of Julius Caesar turns out to be a very important part of the entire drama. So, Act 3 refers to the entire context of how Julius Caesar was assassinated. Now, Act 3, Scene 1. You can see the picture that how the conspirators have assassinated Caesar. You can see the senators being in the state of confusion, chaos, and Julius Caesar was surrounded by all the conspirators who showed no mercy in killing him. And back you can see the statue of Pompey. Okay, the picture is clear, I guess. And from this, we can understand that Act 3, Scene 1 refers to the assassination of Julius Caesar inside the Senate House. Now, key events and analysis. Caesar ignores Artemidorus' petition and the soothsayer, showcasing fatal hubris. Now, soothsayer, as referred in the previous act, that soothsayer has warned Julius Caesar regarding the Ides of March. On the day of the feast of Lupercal, Caesar ignored the predictions or prophecy of the soothsayer at that point of time, stating him to be a dreamer. Similarly, Artemidorus, who came to know about the entire assassination process or the conspiracy of the conspirators, wanted to warn Caesar by giving in writing in a form of a petition which he desperately wanted Caesar to have a look before entering the Senate House. But Caesar ignored his petition as well as the prophecy or the prediction given by the soothsayer. Number 2, compares himself to the northern star, unshakable, constant. Now, Caesar was so stubborn, was so arrogant, and so confident of his power that when each and every conspirators were begging him for the banishment of Publius Cimber. He denied the petition and compared himself to that of the Northern Star. He said that on no account he will forgive him and he will not consider their petitions to remove the banishment of Publius Cimber. Now, as Caesar enters the Senate, Metellus Cimber kneels before him and humbly requests that his brother Publius Cimber, who has been banished, be pardoned. One after another, Brutus, Cassius, Decius Brutus, and other conspirators also pled for the repeal of the banishment. Their request is merely a distraction to surround Caesar and make him vulnerable. Caesar firmly refuses. He declares that he is as constant as the northern star, which never changes its position. He says that if rulers keep changing their decision because of personal request, they lose their authority and dignity. His confidence and pride make him reject every appeal. Number 3, conspirators strike. Brutus deals the final blow. Dying words, et tu Brute, and then fall Caesar. These words express Caesar's deep sense of betrayal. Realizing that even Brutus has turned against him, Caesar gives up all resistance and dies at the foot of Pompey's statue, an ironic symbol of the rivalry between Pompey and Caesar. At this moment, when Caesar was first attacked by Casca, the remaining conspirators immediately stabbed Caesar one after the other. But the last one was Brutus, Caesar's trusted friend, also joined the attack. Seeing Brutus among his murderers breaks Caesar's heart and he utters a famous word. Number 4. Antony feigns alliance, shakes bloody hands, but vows revenge over Caesar's body. Dogs of war. After the assassination, the conspirators proudly proclaim that Rome has been freed from tyranny. They wash their hands and swords in Caesar's blood, believing they have acted for the good of the republic and imagining that future generation will honor them as heroes. Soon Mark Antony's servant arrives and informs Brutus and Antony that Antony wishes to know whether he is safe. Brutus assures him that Antony will not be harmed because the conspirators have acted out of patriotism, not personal hatred. Antony then enters pretending to accept Caesar's death. He cleverly praises the conspirators, shakes hands with each of them despite their blood-stained hands, and asks permission to take Caesar's body for the proper funeral. Antony also requests permission to speak at Caesar's funeral. Against Cassius' advice, Brutus grants Antony's permission, believing that Antony's speech will not influence the people if Brutus speaks first. Antony agrees to the condition but secretly plans to avenge Caesar. After the conspirators leave, Antony reveals his true feelings. Standing beside Caesar's body, he mourns his friend and predicts that Rome will suffer terrible civil war, violence, and bloodshed because of this murder. He vows that Caesar's spirit will inspire revenge. The scene ends with the arrival of Octavius Caesar's servant, who informs Antony that Octavius has delayed entering Rome because of the dangerous situation. Antony advised him to stay away until he has addressed the Roman citizen. Now, the prime theme of Act 3, Scene 1 is ambition versus tyranny and the tragical error of trusting political idealists. Now, the significance of the scene. Caesar is assassinated, changing the course of Roman history. Brutus' tragic mistake is allowing Antony to speak at the funeral. Antony begins explaining his revenge. The conflict between the conspirator and Caesar's supporter is set in motion. The scene marks the transition from political conspiracy to civil war. Act 3, Scene 2 takes place in the Roman Forum and is one of the most dramatic scenes in the play. It demonstrates the power of public speaking and how easily public opinion can be influenced. Brutus' speech, written in prose, appealed to logic, claimed he loved Caesar, but he loved Rome more. Brutus addresses the Roman citizen first. He asks them to listen patiently and judge him fairly. He explains that he loved Caesar dearly but loved Rome even more. According to Brutus, Caesar's ambition threatened the freedom of the Roman people. Therefore, he killed Caesar not out of hatred but out of patriotism. He says, "Not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more." His speech is logical, brief, and based on reason. The crowd is convinced and praises Brutus, even suggesting that he should become the next ruler of Rome. Brutus then allows Mark Antony to deliver Caesar's funeral speech, believing Antony will not oppose the conspirators. Antony's speech, blank verse, appeal to emotions, used irony with Brutus is an honorable man. Antony begins by saying, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." He cleverly tells the crowd that he has come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. Throughout his speech, Antony repeatedly says, "Brutus is an honorable man." But each repetition becomes more ironic and causes the people to doubt Brutus' honesty. Antony reminds the citizen that Caesar refused the crown 3 times during the Lupercal festival, proving that he was not ambitious. He also reminds them that Caesar filled Rome's treasury with wealth from his victories and often wept for the poor. These examples contradict Brutus' accusation. To stir the crowd's emotion further, Antony uncovers Caesar's blood-stained body and points out each wound made by the conspirators, especially the wound inflicted by Brutus, which Antony calls the most unkindest cut of all. He explains that Caesar was more deeply hurt by Brutus' betrayal than by the physical wounds. Antony then mentions Caesar's will, but pretends he does not wish to read it. This increases the crowd's curiosity. Finally, he reads the will, revealing that Caesar has left money to every Roman citizen and has gifted his private garden and parks to the people for public use. Antony reveals Caesar's mantle and will, 75 drachmas to each citizen. The crowd became furious. They realized Caesar truly cared for them and that they have been deceived by the conspirators. Filled with anger, they vow to kill Brutus, Cassius, and the other conspirators. Antony successfully turned public opinion completely in Caesar's favor without directly accusing Brutus, proving himself to be brilliant and manipulative orator. Significance of scene 2 demonstrates the contrast between Brutus' logical speech and Antony's emotional speech, shows Antony's mastery of rhetoric and persuasion, marks the beginning of civil unrest in Rome, highlights the danger of mob mentality and emotional manipulation, proves that words can be more powerful than weapons. Act 3, Scene 3. The mob brutally kills Cinna, the poet, demonstrating total anarchy and breakdown of reason. The scene introduces Cinna, the poet, who is walking through the street of Rome. He explains that he had a strange dream about dining with Caesar and feels uneasy because of the unrest in the city. Nevertheless, he decides to attend Caesar's funeral. Suddenly, a group of angry Roman citizens, already inflamed by Antony's speech, stops him. They ask him several questions, including his name, profession, and destination. When he replies that his name is Cinna, the mob mistakes him for Cinna, the conspirator, one of Caesar's assassinators. The poet quickly explained that he is Cinna the poet, not Cinna the conspirator. However, the crowd refuses to listen. Their anger has overcome all reasons. Some citizens even say they will kill him simply because he has the same name as one of the conspirators, while others mock him for writing bad poetry. The mob brutally kills the innocent poet, showing how dangerous uncontrolled emotions and blind revenge can become. Significance of Scene 3 shows the destructive effect of Antony's speech on the Roman people, illustrate the irrational behavior of an excited mob, highlights the theme of mob violence and loss of justice, demonstrate how innocent people often suffer during political conflict, serves as a warning about the consequences of uncontrolled public anger. Julius Caesar, Act 4. Power and Dissolution. Scene 1. The triumvirate, Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus, cold-bloodedly list enemies for execution. Antony dismisses Lepidus as a donkey. Act 4, Scene 1 takes place in Mark Antony's house after the assassination of Julius Caesar. This scene marks the beginning of a new phase in the play where Antony emerges as a powerful and ruthless leader. The scene opens with Mark Antony, Octavius Caesar, and Lepidus meeting to form the second triumvirate, an alliance to rule Rome and punish Caesar's murderers. The three leaders begin preparing a list of people who must be executed because they are considered enemies of the new government. They discuss the names one by one. Antony even agrees that Lepidus' own brother should be included on the death list if Lepidus agrees to include Antony's nephew. This shows that political power has become more important than family relationships. Lepidus is then sent to Caesar's house to bring Caesar's will, so that the three rulers can decide whether they should reduce the amount of money promised to the Roman citizen. This reveals that Antony's public concern for the people during his funeral speech was partly a political strategy. After Lepidus leaves, Antony speaks openly about him. He called Lepidus a weak and insignificant man, comparing him to a horse that can be trained and used only for carrying out orders. Antony believes Lepidus has no independent judgment and is useful merely as a tool. Octavius, however, defends Lepidus by saying that he is capable and experienced soldier. Antony disagrees and insists that Lepidus should never be treated as an equal partner in governing Rome. The conversation then turns to Brutus and Cassius, who has gathered an army and preparing for war. Antony and Octavius realize that defeating the conspirators will require careful planning. They decide to unite their forces and prepare for the coming battle. The scene ends with Antony and Octavius leaving together to organize their military campaign against Brutus and Cassius. Significance of Act 4, Scene 1. The second triumvirate, Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus, is officially formed. The rulers prepared a proscription list ordering the execution of the political enemies. Antony's ruthless and ambitious nature is revealed. Lepidus is shown to be politically weak and treated as a mere instrument. The scene exposes the hypocrisy of Antony, who had appeared compassionate during Caesar's funeral but now seeks power. The conflict shifts from political conspiracy to civil war, setting the stage for the Battle of Philippi. Major themes: abuse of political power, ambition and authority, betrayal and sacrifice, revenge and justice, manipulation and hypocrisy, political alliances. Act 4, Scene 2 and 3. Brutus accuses Cassius of taking bribes, eating palm. Intense quarrel in the tent at Sardis. Act 4, Scene 2 takes place at Brutus' camp near Sardis. This short scene prepares the audience for the important confrontation between Brutus and Cassius in the next scene. Brutus, in his military camp and with his soldier Lucilius, Titanius, and Pindarus, he is informed that Cassius is approaching with his army. However, Brutus notices that Lucilius' behavior that Cassius did not greet him warmly. Lucilius reports that Cassius appeared cold, distant, and less friendly than before. Brutus realizes that there may be misunderstanding between them. Instead of quarreling in front of the soldiers, he wisely decides that they should settle their differences privately inside his tent. He believes that open arguments among leaders would weaken the confidence of their troops. When Cassius arrives, Brutus welcomes him respectfully but immediately asks him to enter the tent so that they can discuss the disagreement away from the soldiers. Significance of Scene 2 introduces the growing tension between Brutus and Cassius, shows Brutus' maturity and leadership quality, highlights the importance of unity among the conspirators before the coming battle, prepare the audiences for the emotional and dramatic events of the Scene 3. Brutus reveals Porcia's tragic suicide by swallowing fire. Brutus overrules Cassius to march to Philippi. Caesar's ghost appears, warning Brutus of his doom. Act 4, Scene 3 is one of the longest and most significant scenes in the play. It reveals the emotional, moral, and psychological struggle of Brutus and Cassius. Inside Brutus' tent, Brutus accuses Cassius of accepting bribes and acting dishonestly. Brutus believes that since they killed Caesar to save Rome from corruption, they should not become corrupt themselves. Cassius feels deeply insulted because Brutus questions his honor and loyalty. The argument becomes intense. Cassius loses his temper and reminds Brutus of their friendship. In great frustration, he even kills Brutus. He even offers Brutus his dagger and invites him to kill him if he no longer trusts him, saying that he values Brutus' friendship more than his own life. Gradually, both men calm down and realize that their anger has been caused by stress and grief. They forgive each other and reconcile, strengthening their friendship once again. Brutus then shared the heartbreaking news that Portia, his wife, has died. Unable to bear Brutus' absence and the political uncertainty in Rome, she committed suicide by swallowing burning coals. Cassius is shocked and deeply saddened, but Brutus displays remarkable self control and accepts the tragedy with stoic courage. The conversation then turns to military strategy. Brutus argues that they should march immediately to Philippi to confront Antony and Octavius before their enemies became stronger. Caesar initially disagrees, preferring to wait and then let the enemy attack first. However, after listening to Brutus' reasoning, Cassius accepts Brutus' plan. Late at night, after Cassius leaves, Brutus prepares to sleep. His loyal servant Lucius plays music for him and soon falls asleep from exhaustion. While Brutus is alone, the ghost of Julius Caesar suddenly appears. The ghost tells Brutus, "Thou shalt see me at Philippi." The ghost symbolizes guilt, destiny, and certainty that justice will be served. Brutus remained calm despite the frightening vision. After the ghost disappears, he wakes his servant, but none of them saw the apparition. The scene ends with Brutus preparing for march to Philippi, where the final battle will take place. Significant of Act 4, Scene 3, Brutus and Cassius resolve their conflict and restore their friendship. Portia's death highlights her personal sacrifice caused by political conflict. Brutus' Stoic philosophy and self control are revealed. The decision to march to Philippi determined the course of the war. The ghost of Caesar foreshadows Brutus' defeat and death. The scene builds suspense before the final act of the play. Major themes: friendship and reconciliation, honor and corruption, leadership and responsibility, grief and self control, fate and the supernatural, guilt and revenge. So here we come to an end of Julius Caesar Act 3 and Act 4. Hope you all be able to solve your doubts and will be useful for your exam. Now, moving on to the next segment, we have the poem The Haunted Houses by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, a quiet reflection on memory, spirits, and human existence. Haunted Houses analysis gentle spiritual presence. Longfellow presents ghosts not as terrifying phantoms but as harmless, quiet spirits of former occupants moving silently through familiar doorways. Core themes: dual existence of the material and spiritual realm, bridge of light connecting earth to the cosmos, and the imperishable nature of human memory. The Haunted Houses is a philosophical and reflective poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The poet represents a unique idea of haunting. The poet presents a unique idea of haunting. Unlike traditional ghost stories, he does not describe haunted houses as frightening places occupied by evil spirits. Instead, he suggested that every house in which people have lived becomes haunted by the memories and invisible presence of those who once occupied it. The poem begins with the poet stating that all houses are haunted houses. The ghosts he refers to are not terrifying supernatural beings, but the gentle spirit of people who have lived, loved, lived, and died in those homes. Although these spirits cannot be seen by ordinary human eyes, they quietly move through the halls and rooms, reminding us that the past always remains connected to the present. Longfellow explains that there are two worlds existing side by side: the visible world of the living and the invisible world of the spirits. These two worlds do not interfere with each other, yet they are closely connected. Human beings often remain unaware of the unseen spiritual presence because they are too occupied with their daily lives. The poet compares the movement of this spirit to the silent passage of air through an open doorway. Just as the air enters and leaves unnoticed, the spirit quietly passes through our homes without causing fear of disturbance. Their presence is peaceful and comforting rather than frightening. The poem further explains that every person carries memories of loved ones who have passed away. Their influence continues even after death through the value, affections, and experiences they have left behind. Thus, the spirit symbolizes not horror but love, memory, and the continuity of human existence. Towards the end of the poem, Longfellow broadens his ideas beyond individual homes. He suggests that the entire world is filled with invisible spiritual beings. Human life is only a small part of a much larger spiritual universe. The poet encouraged readers to respect this unseen world, to understand that death is not the end of existence but a transition into another realm. The poet leaves the reader with a comforting message that the people we love never completely disappear. Though physically absent, they continue to live in our memories and the unseen spiritual world that surround us. The major themes of this poem are life after death, memory and remembrance, the immortality of the soul, the connection between the living and the dead, spirituality and faith, the coexistence of the visible and invisible world. Now let's move to the important questions that may come or may be asked, like context, Act 3, Scene 1 and 2, Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. How does Antony counter Brutus' charge of ambition? Explain the significance of Caesar's bloody mantle. What impact does the reading of the will have on the mob? Contrast Brutus' prose style with Antony's verse style. Act 4, Scene 3, there is a tide in the affair of men. What strategic disagreement occurs between Brutus and Cassius? Why does Cassius give in to Brutus' plan? What tragic news from Rome precedes this debate? How does Caesar's ghost foreshadow the outcome of at Philippi? From the haunted house, all houses wherein great men have lived and died. Why does the speaker claim all houses are haunted? How do the phantoms guests behave at the dinner table? How does Longfellow's view of ghosts differ from popular horror? Spiritual metaphors, the spirit world around the world of sense. Explain the metaphor of the bridge of light. What keeps human life balanced between earth and the sky? What central message does the poet convey regarding mortality? These are the different sources from where you can get. Now, according to ICSE board, we have different segments how the paper pattern or how the paper is set in the examination. The first category of questions that will be asked is recall. Now, recall means knowledge or remembering. Now, definition means testing your ability to retrieve facts, terms, quotes, sequence of events, or explicit details directly from given text or passage. Key verbs list, name, identify, who, where, when, quote. Example questions who strikes Caesar first in Act 3, Scene 1? Where are Brutus and Cassius camped during Act 4? The next is understanding, comprehension, interpretation. Testing your ability to explain concept, translate ideas into your own words, interpret specific lines, or demonstrate an understanding of character motives. Key verbs explain, describe, summarize, interpret, why, and how. Explain what Caesar means when he compares himself to the Northern Star. Why are the ghosts in Longfellow's poem described as inoffensive? The third segment of the paper will be analysis, analytical thinking, critical evaluation. Definition break down a text into parts to see how they relate, identifying literary devices, comparing characters, speeches, evaluating cause and effect, relationships, or uncovering deeper themes. Key verbs compare, contrast, analyze, examine, differentiate. What is the significance of? Compare the rhetorical techniques used in Brutus' prose speech versus Antony's verse speech. Analyze how the murder of Cinna The poet reflects the theme of a mob hysteria. The last part will be global reading, holistic comprehension. Now, questions that require you to look beyond an isolated line or single scene and evaluate the text as a whole. This include identifying central themes, main takeaways, overall tone, overarching character, arcs, or universal life lessons. What is the main idea? Identify the central theme. How does this reflect the message of the text as a whole? What is the overall tone and central message conveyed by W.H. Longfellow in Haunted House? How does Caesar's death act as a turning point for the entire political landscape of Rome in the play? This is the summary table of what I have discussed so far. Recall, understanding, analysis, and global. Just go through it. This is the same pattern which will be followed in the examination paper to set the questions for you. This is internal assessment in English, I mean, language with grades, oral assignment. First one is understanding, comprehension, main idea and central theme, then recall, then vocabulary, then context, correlation to other areas, and the marks. The chart is important, just go through it so that you can get an overview of everything. With this, I'll conclude my session. Hope this will be useful for your upcoming exam. Do like, share, and subscribe to our channel and send the link to maximum number of your friends so that they can also get benefit from whatever we have discussed so far. All the best for your exams. Thank you very much.